At exactly 10 p.m., a figure stood at the edge of a gleaming skyscraper, arms outstretched over the yawning abyss of the city below. Neon lights painted his form in a kaleidoscope of colors. His companion, a gaudy clown with red hair and a forced smile, stood beside him, grinning like death. The wind howled, carrying with it the muffled hum of the world far below. There was a collective gasp from the crowd gathered on the street, staring up in disbelief. Then, they jumped. 1 week earlier. Marcus Blake stared at the email on his phone, squinting as if reading it one more time would change the contents. The final act, a performance by Elliot Greaves. Thursday. The death of corporate America, embodied by the iconic clown. Marcus scratched his chin, feeling the familiar prick of unease in his gut. As the owner of the Pinnacle Gallery on 6th Avenue, he'd seen his share of ridiculous art proposals. But this was something else. The concept seemed bold, absurd, and maybe just stupid enough to attract attention. And attention meant money. He forwarded the email to Kate, his business partner, with a short message. "What do you think?" "Could be huge," Kate replied in less than a minute. "Or a PR nightmare. Let's meet." 2 days later, Marcus and Kate met with Elliot Greaves in the dimly lit lounge of the Regent, a small boutique hotel tucked away in the heart of the city. Elliot was exactly as Marcus had imagined. Tall, gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes and a perpetual air of dishevelment that somehow passed as artistic. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in weeks, living off caffeine and a growing sense of self-importance. "You really think this act will work?" Marcus asked, leaning back in his chair. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or take the artist seriously. Elliot smiled, a thin, almost serpentine grin. "It's not just an act, it's a statement. Corporate America is killing itself, and what better symbol than the clown that sold millions of people greasy dreams?" Kate interjected. "And you're planning to do what, exactly?" "Have this Ronald McDonald look-alike jump off a building and... what? Splat on the pavement?" Elliot nodded, his eyes gleaming. "Exactly. Except not just him. There'll be 12 smaller statues in the gallery, all falling in sync with the main event. It'll be visceral. It'll be unforgettable." Marcus exchanged a glance with Kate. She gave a slight shrug, signaling her reluctant interest. She was the brains behind the gallery's rise, and her instincts had been right more often than not. "This sounds dangerous," Marcus said, his skepticism softening just enough to let the idea simmer. "What's your safety plan? What happens if it goes wrong?" "It won't go wrong," Elliot said, his voice suddenly cold and firm. "I've planned every detail, but if it does, well, that's the price of real art, isn't it?" The week leading up to the performance was a blur of preparation. Elliot spent every waking moment in the gallery, assembling his 12 miniature statues. Each stood on a gray base, hands outstretched like their larger counterpart would be on the rooftop. Kate, always pragmatic, organized the permits, coordinated with city officials, and made sure every legal base was covered. She didn't trust Elliot, not one bit, but she trusted Marcus's gut. And Marcus's gut was telling him this was their big break. On the day of the event, Marcus could feel the tension in the air. He paced through the gallery, eyeing the crowd gathering outside. News outlets had already shown up, and people were whispering about the clown's suicide. There was an electric charge in the atmosphere, as if the city itself was waiting to see how this spectacle would unfold. Up on the rooftop, Elliot stood next to the life-size Ronald McDonald replica, his face pale but determined. The crowd below had no idea whether what they were witnessing was real or staged, and that was exactly how Elliot wanted it. "What's the plan?" Marcus asked as he stepped onto the rooftop, his nerves thrumming. The air was crisp, and the city lights sparkled beneath them like stars. Elliot turned, his expression unreadable. "We jump. He falls first, then I follow. It's all synced." Marcus frowned. "Wait, you're jumping too?" Elliot smirked. "Did you think I'd stand back and watch?" "No, I'm part of this too. The fall is everything." Marcus hesitated. "Are you sure this is safe? I mean, what if something happens?" "It won't," Elliot cut him off. "Trust me. Just be ready for the buzz." As the clock struck 10, Marcus watched in horror from the gallery as the live feed showed Elliot and the clown stepping off the ledge. The cameras followed their descent, catching every detail, Ronald fell first, limbs flailing before smashing into the target below with a sickening thud. A cheer erupted from the crowd. But then Elliot's body hit the pavement. "Holy shit!" Marcus yelled, standing up so quickly that he knocked over his chair. "He wasn't supposed to—" "Calm down," Kate said, her eyes fixed on the screen. She didn't flinch, even as the crowd's cheers turned into shocked gasps. "Wait for it!" "For what?" Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. "He's dead." But then, 5 minutes later, Elliot emerged from the shadows, completely unscathed. The figure that had fallen? A lifelike dummy, crafted in his own image. The real Elliot, ever the showman, had slipped away unnoticed, leaving the audience stunned. The crowd roared again, this time in amazement. The performance had been flawless, the suspense unbearable, and the reveal nothing short of genius. The media was already buzzing, with social media exploding in a frenzy of posts about the greatest art hoax of the century. Kate leaned back, her face unreadable as she watched the bids pour in for the 12 miniature statues that had smashed in perfect synchronization with the fake Elliot and Ronald. Each one was drenched in symbolic blood, red paint packets bursting on impact, marking the targets in grotesque beauty. "Well," she said, finally turning to Marcus, "we're rich." In the days following the event, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Elliot was basking in the glory, grinning for the cameras, but Marcus could sense the unease behind his eyes. The performance had gone perfectly, but what now? What came after such a public spectacle? One evening, while Marcus was alone in the gallery, he noticed a strange message on his phone. It was from an unknown number, just a single sentence. "The real act is yet to come." He stared at it for a long time, his blood running cold.